If I could just be that great, if I could just achieve that amount of money, then life will be great and perfect.
How accurate that is.
And then the blessing in getting there and having the curtain pulled back and realizing it fixes nothing.
When I came to the States, I got into the bathtub for the first time. I realized two things. One, I will never ever take anything for granted ever again. I'm blessed to be able to experience Jamaica and then come into America, because otherwise I don't think I would have had this much appreciation for this country.
When we win, it doesn't always mean we are our best, but when you're your best, you're more likely to win.
100%.
Right?
Wow, I like that.
So it's like, yeah, sometimes you hold yourself back and you might actually lose because you're so focused on winning. You end up on that side of it. And it's just way more fun to just go out there and just like, I'm just going to be the best.
Yeah,
I'm going to be my
best. The hardest thing for me to do is tell myself I did the best that I could. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for us to do that because we're always like, yeah, but I should have did this.
In hindsight, you could have done better.
That. Yeah, you could have done better.
Welcome to the Built for Growth podcast. Today, I had a good friend of mine, Ode Osbourne, the Jamaican Sensation. He's a fighter in the UFC, but he is so much more. And today, I feel like we really elaborated on some big mental shifts that it takes to go from being good and seeking that desire of wanting the acceptance and love that maybe you didn't have as a kid, right? We unpacked a little bit of childhood trauma and we moved it into what it takes to be great. And we talked about those mental shifts, and I feel like it was a really powerful conversation, and I think that you're gonna love this. So thanks for listening and enjoy this podcast. Welcome to Built for Growth. I'm excited to have you here, Ode. I feel like we go way back, but we don't go that far back, but we go back a minute. I mean, you know, it hasn't been too long. So I remember the first time I really remember, some of you have the same memory, okay? It was like
sauna.
And I was like over here. Well, many times we've been in the sauna for sure. And I don't remember where, but you were talking about like sleep. Yes, yeah. You were having trouble with sleep. And I was just like listening to the conversation, and of course I inserted myself, you know, because I tend to do that. And we were just talking about it. I was like, man, I sleep really well, and I think, you know, before fights, and I still am like, I'm so blessed with that. I don't have any anxiety or worries before fights. I just sleep well. But you were having like some sleep aversions.
Yeah, it was bad.
Tell me what was going on, and has it gotten better?
Oh, loads better. Okay,
talk to me about it.
First of all, edibles help.
All right, there we go.
But, you know, I think it's much more than that. So that was I was on my first contract. Now I'm on my third contract, thank goodness. And, you know, I think it was
with
just
the UFC.
Yeah. And I think it was just the stress of, that was my last fight on my contract. Like, if I lost, I'd have been cut from the UFC, you know. I just moved to Vegas. Like, I think I'd moved to Vegas a month prior to meeting you in the sauna. So it was just the perfect timing, you know. And I think you told me about Micah, and then I got meeting with Micah. Micah helped me a lot. But, you know how it is, man. Sometimes that fight stress of, oh, man, you know, I've dedicated so much time to this sport, and, you know, if I lose, I'm cut, and then what? You know what I'm saying? It's always the then what.
Yeah.
But it's gotten much better because time under the lights help. Because eventually you wake up and you're like, it's not that serious. You know what I mean? That was the realization. It's the craziest thing to say, but that was the realization. I was like, one day I was like, you know, it's really not that serious. And after I like thought about that, I'd started getting good sleep.
No way.
I swear, because for me, I've always, my whole life has been this like, you know, this like chip on my shoulder. You know, I grew up in Jamaica, and I always wanted to, you know, it's the theory of wanting to be somebody or wanted to be loved, kind of, you know what I mean?
So I find your worth.
Yeah, so
prove
I grew
your
up
worth.
trying to prove too much, you know, and finally I was just like, you know, 12-year-old me will be really blessed to know where I am today. So stop stressing, Ode. It's not that serious, because it's always been serious.
Yeah.
And finally, it was just like, relief.
How do you think you got to the point of realizing that it's not that serious? Like, what were some things? What were some points for you? Because I feel like we've had numerous conversations too. Like we've talked a lot in the sauna, and we always, I feel like anytime we do that, we have this like growth and development mutually, you know, and we explore, and it's kind of, you know, it's interesting. And I feel like I've seen your mindset shift.
It has.
And I'd love you to dive into a little bit if you think there's like certain points that really were moving you, because I mean, I feel like we have these small changes, right? And then we give these epiphany moments.
Yep.
That sounded like you described an epiphany moment.
Yeah.
But, you know, an epiphany usually takes a lot of kind of little like small things or small changes or small developments or small thoughts that kind of get you
Yep.
to that point of, oh, now I really realize it's not that serious.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of things. I think maturing is one of the things, because, you know, males, everybody knows this, we mature a lot slower than you guys. You guys are like, you guys come out the womb mature, you know what I mean?
How old are you, Ode?
33.
33,
I just turned 33 in January. Actually, January's long gone now.
Right, we're almost to the hot season.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So, you know, it was just one of those things. I think my brain kind of developed a little bit more.
Okay.
Because I just had so much pressure I put on myself, you know what I'm saying? And I think the big part of it is that we're so afraid to deep dive into what makes us tick, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Which, not me, I'm like, why did I do that? Why do I think this way? Why am I like this? You know, I'm always asking myself these questions, and sometimes I find the answer that I don't want, which is okay, you know, because it's better to find the answer you don't like than to, you know, be like out of mind, out of sight type of thing. So when I started asking myself about the why am I struggling with sleep? And then that opened up the door of, oh man, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. Why am I putting a lot of pressure on myself? And then that opened up the door from, like, you know, my childhood. And then I eventually thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute. Actually, childhood me would be extremely impressed with where I've gotten. You know, I'm about to have my 12th fight in the UFC, and childhood me would be impressed and grateful for this. And like I said before, I think it's hard for us to dive into those possibilities of, like, maybe there's something wrong with me. You know what I'm saying? Because I actually went down that rabbit hole of maybe there's something wrong with me mentally. You know what I mean? Because it got so bad to where, like, when you don't sleep enough, you start getting these intrusive thoughts. And so once first I won the fight. No, thanks to you, by the way. The chamber that you put me in actually helped a lot.
The hyperbaric chamber?
The hyperbaric chamber, that helped. Also your advice and just kind of like putting on that
brain tap.
That brain tap, yep.
Yes.
So a lot of the stuff you actually shared with me helped a lot. So thank you, you know, because I probably could have lost that fight, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Oh, I hope we would, because you're great. But you know what? I'm glad to hear that some of those things helped, and it's one of my favorite things to do is just share the things that work for me and see if they work for other people. Because I mean, we don't know until we try. I remember one of our sauna session. So you know, we run into each other all the time at the UFC Performance Institute. You're working out, I'm training, you know, all the things, and you know, we'll just randomly be in the sauna together. I mean, it's like the greatest talks. I love that when I'm like, when I see Ode in the sauna, I'm like,
you know,
yes,
we're gonna learn. About to
some epiphany is about to happen. But I remember, like, we were talking about, you know, your sleep and like, I think morning light, and we were having just like this great conversation, and it was just like, every time that happens, it's like a big moment.
Yeah, it's like a light bulb.
Yeah.
It's a big light bulb every time.
And we were talking about one time, I remember, like, being alone with yourself. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I used to be one of those people that used to like to fill all my quiet moments with something.
Same.
Yeah, like it's some, you know, like music or like motivational speech. Mm-hmm. I you know, I didn't go running without something. Mm-hmm. I had to like have it on all the time, and I realized that I think I was kind of deflecting.
Yes.
Right, because you don't always know how to sit down and be quiet with yourself, because the moment everything pauses, and you're alone, the thoughts come.
Yeah.
It's like they're begging to be answered.
Yep.
Or they're begging to be asked.
Yep. It's like
at least.
It's like being back in the locker room, you know, before your fights.
Yeah.
That's like the scariest moment. I think all fighters go through that. For me, it's the scariest moment. You know what I mean?
It is. It's all the anticipation.
Yeah.
It's, you know, you have to deflect the intrusive thoughts. And did I do enough?
Yep.
You know, is the hay really in the barn? You know, is this, am I what if I don't? You know, what if? And they come, and it can be really scary if you have no experience sitting with yourself and these thoughts.
Can I ask you a question? I noticed something different about you. The last fight from your last like 2 or 3 fights in that locker room. What was going through your mind in that like what? Because I noticed something just different
in this most recent fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, for me, I think I was just proud of myself, no matter what, and and it was just. It was nice. It was calm.
Yeah.
I didn't feel stressed, but I knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's different. But, you know, feeling stressed because you're not really sure of who you are and what you are beyond this moment that's about to come into play. And it's like your value is based on that. Because I just don't feel like my value is based on the outcome of a fight anymore. So
that's interesting because everyone defines fighting as ourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We make fighting us.
It
and I
is.
think that's another thing that I discovered. Go ahead.
That there's so much more to, you know, there's to Ode, to Misha, to anybody who steps in there, because it's just a small moment in time. And on our deathbeds, you know, we'll probably look back over the career as a whole. Like those one little moments don't mean that you know, if you lose, that's all that you have. Like you're nothing. It's not that. And if you win, you're everything. It's not that. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Is like if you know who you are going into it, you know who you are coming out of it. And that's what I really felt like in this fight. It's like, you know, win, lose, draw. You know, I'm at peace.
You looked like when you went out there, like I said, like in your face, I just saw something different. I was like, wow, like, you know, I remember saying, I was like, win, lose, or draw. It was the middle of your fight. I was like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be for the rest of this fight. I think it was like the second round. I was like, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, and I don't really care. I was like, because you laid it all out there, and you were like the most ferocious I've ever seen you. I was like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? I was like, do you have a death in the family or whatever?
Right. You know,
I was like,
you know what? I knew what I wanted in that moment, and it was like I did not want a slow fight, and I didn't want a slow start, because a lot of people at my age, at my stage in my career, they want to know, does Misha Tate still have it?
Yeah.
You know, and and win, lose, or draw. I wanted to answer that question.
Yeah.
It's like I still got it.
Yeah,
you know, I still have it, and I don't have to win in order to prove that. You know, like even in a loss, you know, I think it was somewhat controversial. A lot of people feel like, okay, I won or whatever, but it doesn't matter.
I'm biased. I thought so, but I'm biased. I was like, I thought you won.
Like,
you know,
it wasn't a highway robbery. There's certainly things I could have done. I could have fought smarter, but I wanted to fight hard. That was my goals. I wanted to fight hard. I didn't want to, you know, be lackadaisical. I didn't want it to be a boring fight. I didn't want it to be anything but, you know, that moment I'm so grateful for it, because I don't know how many more I'm going to have. So it's like, I just want to make the most of it. I want to enjoy that. I want to have fun.
And you did that. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of times, too, the hardest thing for me to do is tell myself I did the best that I could. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for us to do that, because we're always like, yeah, but I should have did this.
In hindsight, you could have done better.
That. Yeah, you could have done better.
I still think in that third round, I was like, if I could fix one thing, it probably would have been to just like give up to her back, like go back to mount.
Go back to mount?
Yeah, because I think I could have got a TKO.
Oh, from mount?
You know, I think so. See, like, and I shouldn't have like just like taken her back like a backpack. I should have just like stayed where I could hit her, you know, and like transition from mount to back and just stay, you know, in that position.
I'm sure. We always think that.
Right,
but then again, at the end, in the heat of battle, we're exhausted, and she's also turning, you know what I'm saying? So she's also giving you her back and saying...
And she was stalling a lot there, you know? Like her coach was right there in her ear. I could hear him, just stay there, Yana, just stay there. And I was like, shh. I was like, no, tell her to go. Because the moment she tried to sit up, I was like...
You were hitting her.
I was having fun with it,
I know, you were hitting her. And you could tell, too, you know what I'm saying? She was just like, okay, just kind of, like you said, stalling. Like, okay, just, you know, if I give my back up, and all I gotta do is just hang out here and chill. But if I'm at mount, then I have an opportunity to get TKO'd. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those. But also, it could have been like, oh, if I gave my back up, maybe she can choke me out, you know? But it was, like I said, you did the best that you could. If you could have done better in that moment, guess what? You would have.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we all miss.
Right. And the point of failure is actually very important. It's so important to not have a 100% success rate, because those are the moments that we actually learn. Even from a neurological science point, the failure is actually so much more opportunity to critique and to lay down myelins, like this wrapping that goes around. Like I think of our brain and our neural circuitry kind of like cables. And the myelin is something that you lay down around those wires and it tightens it and basically helps the neurocircuitry fire faster and stay on route. Because there's like a million ways, like when energy comes through the mind, that it can go in all these different directions. But when you lay down the myelin and you wrap around the coil, that's how we get muscle memory. That's basically what muscle memory is.
Yeah.
It's like the instinct to do the right thing when you don't have time to really think about it in a slowed down, conscious way.
Yeah.
It's reaction. And the more that we fail, the better we actually get at finding the right circuitry.
One of my good friends and partners, I'll tell you later, but you sound just, one of my friend Brian Smith, him and I talk about stuff like this all the time. But I've never heard anybody explain it like that when wrapping around.
Myelin.
Yeah, I've never. That's the first.
That's the difference between, somebody who's not good at something and somebody that's great, is like the amount of myelin that they lay down in their brain to
100%
make them
right.
great.
And I think another big thing with training your brain, for me, and I don't know if it's age or just diving into my brain so much. Sometimes I live too much in my own head, you know what I mean? But I'm constantly, I can't help it because I want to know things. I want to know, you know what I mean? But a lot of the times where I mess up, I stick to, oh man, I messed up. And then I had to kind of like reprogram my brain to, if I mess up, or if, say for example, if we're grappling and I make a mistake, instead of being like, oh crap, I made that mistake, I started doing this thing where I'm like, oh, I made the mistake. It's okay. Let's fix it. And then fix it right away. You know what I mean? So it doesn't you don't stew on it.
That's perfect.
Because that was something I realized I did. I was starting to stew on all the mistakes that I would make. You know, and I would just, whether it was fighting or life, you know what I'm saying? I'm like that as well in life. I make a mistake in life, I stew on it. Like, oh, why did I do that? I'm so stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the negative self-talk comes in, and then you spiral, and then you don't sleep well.
Yep, exactly. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
But, I think I'm going to blame age along with, like you said, failures. And it's mainly the saying, you live and you learn. It's so true. It's not you live and you fail, you live and you learn, because the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So I had my first fight in the UFC on a Conor McGregor show when he fought Cowboy Cerrone. And I opened up the main card and I lost that first fight in the UFC. And that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because my ego was like up here at the time. This was 6 years ago. I was 27 years old. You know what I mean? Ego, didn't feel like I needed to put that much into training because I got it. I'm that dude. I can do whatever. And, it was very humbling, because when I lost, it made me realize, like, wow, you got a lot of work to do, and you need to chill out, Ode. Your ego is just too much right now. And the reason why you lost is nothing to do with your fighting style, but it's more so to do with your ego and you lost focus, your lack of focus. So those little small failures or lessons definitely help in the grand scheme of things. Going into this last fight, I'd lost 3 fights in a row. I had, fought Lazy Boy at the Sphere, and that was just like, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. You know what I mean? And it was just one of those things where I was like, you know what? I've lost 3 times. What the hell? I don't care. I'm just going to go out there and do the best I can. And that's what happened. I went out there and did the best performance ever.
I love it. That's so powerful. And I think there's so much to unpack there, because when we win, it doesn't always mean we are our best.
It's true.
Right? But when you're your best, you're more likely to win.
100%.
Right?
Wow, I like that.
So it's like, sometimes you hold yourself back and you might actually lose because you're so focused on winning.
Yeah.
And you're trying not to lose.
Yep.
And then you end up on that side of it. And it's just way more fun to just go out there and just like, I'm just going to be the best.
Yeah,
I'm going to be my
best. Yeah, and sometimes too, when you focus on, so I don't know if you've ever had this, but I've had this happen 3 times already. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. Michael Bisping and Daniel Cormier, even Chael Sonnen, they're always like, when you win your fight, have a name, have a name that you want to call out, because it makes, it sells. It's much better to have a name. DC always says that. And for 3 fights, I've had a name that I wanted to call out. I had a speech I wanted to give. You know what I'm saying? And then I lost. And then I realized I'm focusing way too much on the win, and instead of just like the moment, the present, the being, the here, the now. And this fight, I didn't think about. I was like, I don't know who. I didn't think about any of that. No after fight speech, no name, nothing. I was like, you know what? Let me focus more on getting this win more than the after. You know what I'm saying? The future, because we're always either thinking in the past or thinking in the future. We rarely think in the present.
Oh, that's so powerful. Take that one home. Take notes, everybody, because that's important. And being present is so much of, it's the only moment that we can do something about.
Yeah.
You can't change the future necessarily, and you can't change the past necessarily.
Nope.
So you got to be in the present moment, and that's what's going to put you in the right trajectory for what's going to happen in the future.
I agree 100%. And that when I started being more present, and when I started being more present, it made me realize how hard it was to be present. I didn't realize it. I was just going through the motions every day, just doing the same stuff, and not realizing how much time I spent in my own head. And then when I tried to focus on oh wow, the walls, the lights, people,
your senses, your smell, your taste, your touch.
Yeah, and
right?
I started realizing it only took me about 30, maybe 40 seconds to go right back into thinking about something in my brain. And I was like, wow. I did not realize how conditioned I was to being in my own head until I started doing that.
It brings me back to the sauna conversation we had about that exactly, about being present and about spending time with yourself, to let yourself kind of not only engage the senses, because that's the practicing skill set. That's what Micah works with us on. Who, by the way, we mentioned him earlier, but I didn't really explain who he is. He's the mental coach, I would call him, at the UFC Performance Institute, provided to us, which I think is such a great asset to have. I'd recommend it for any athlete anywhere, but especially if you're in the UFC, you got to take advantage of Micah. He is the best.
And he played Major League Baseball, so he understands what it's like being a professional athlete.
Yeah.
For me, that's everything. Because for me, it's okay, well, I know you're giving me good advice, but you don't really understand because you've never played a sport. You know what I'm saying? Because I've had that where, I was like, yeah, but you don't really get it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No matter how much you try.
Right.
Micah gets it. He's been there, so I love that.
And I love how he turned that. He didn't reach the level that he wanted to in baseball because he suffered so badly with performance anxiety, being in his own head. So he knows really what it can do. But he took that and he turned it around to hey, I'm going to take that and I'm going to turn it into helping other people.
Yeah,
which
I love
is very
that.
admirable.
Yeah.
Which is another, failure turned to success.
Well, it's kind of like what you're doing. You know what I mean? You've always been a big helper, especially when it comes to the mental aspect of it. Shoot.
You're fine.
All right. I didn't know what kind of podcast we were doing. Our first sauna session, you know what I mean? When I was talking about sleeping, and you're just relax. You helped me so much just by giving me those. And I was like, you're right. You know what? You're right. I tried. Still was just in my own head. But that's what you're doing, and I admire that. And I would like to do that when I'm done fighting someday or now. You know what I mean?
Now. Now's the moment.
Right.
But it can be a 5-minute conversation with somebody, just like that, opportunity, just like I jumped in, impromptu on your conversation you're having with someone else. It's just hey, let me just share you my insights and let's see if it helps you. And if it doesn't, that's, one thing, but hopefully it will.
And it did.
Yeah, and it did. And we've been kind of just talking ever since and, helping each other, I feel mutually. And I always gain a lot, I feel anytime that I talk to you as well. So the feeling's mutual.
Same.
You're pretty great and awesome. Let's talk about perfecting things a little bit, because I wanted to circle back about that, because one of my training partners, actually today, we were at wrestling practice, and she's like, gosh, I just want to be, I want it to be perfect. And I'm in my mind, I'm no, you don't. Because yes, you do, but you can't.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's an unrealistic, unattainable goal.
Yeah.
Even when we get takedowns, oftentimes, or strikes or whatever, they're usually not perfect.
Nope.
I mean, when you're going full bore and someone's resisting 100% and you're trying to knock, it's so extremely rare that anything is perfect.
Yeah.
And even if it's good, it's just there's too much chaos. You cannot strive for perfection.
Yep.
Right? So that whole concept of embracing failure. It's actually that mental shift. You started to talk about that where you were hyper focused on perfection. I find this a lot in athletes.
Yeah.
But I think even people in general, they focus on, I've got to do it right. I've got to be perfect at it. And I want to encourage people to embrace their imperfections and their failures.
Yep.
Like, get excited about it. Not
Yep.
just like embrace it, like get excited about it.
Yep.
My wrestling coach, Kirk White, he went and like he did Greco, I think, at the Olympic Training Center with all these like savages, and he went in the room and he was like, I need to learn this. And he's like, so the best way I'm going to learn it is to just let them throw me over and over and over. And they probably thought he just like absolutely sucked.
Crazy. Yeah.
Just sucked, because he was like, I need to experience what like failure is so I can undo this backwards. Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to try to just not get thrown, because if I do that, I'll never learn how to actually not get thrown. We'll stall out, nothing will happen, or, I'll get thrown, but I'm so worried about that I'm not actually taking in information. So I love that mindset that it's like, when you fail or mess up, like, get excited about it, because like, man, that's an opportunity for me to unravel this and work it backwards.
Reverse
and
engineer.
I'm laying down, now I really understand. But if you're so frustrated on the failure, or you're so focused on, oh man, I got to be perfect, then I think you miss the lesson in it all. And like, really what you can gain from it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's funny, the only time that I can remember, even in fighting, that I was like perfect was by accident. Like, when I say that, I mean like, when I say accident, I just mean like I just let my brain go and I just did something where I was like, oh crap, I didn't even mean to do that, but it worked. You know what I mean?
And it happened so fast.
Yeah, so fast. Like, even my last fight, when I hit the that cross down the middle, boom.
Oh, it was so good.
I had no idea. When I tell you, I walked over to my coach and I was just like, Aljo, I was like, what did I just hit him with? I couldn't even tell you what I threw. It was just like, boom. I had no idea. I had no clue. And that was probably the first time that's ever happened to me.
It was probably truly like a flow state that you were dipping into, where it's like your body and mind are so in sync that you don't have to be anywhere but just right now, and then it all just clicks that way.
Yeah, right in that perfect moment, everything just lined up, and I was like, wow, I've never experienced that. I'm like, I want to be there again. But it's easier said than done, because I think when you talk about perfection, right, I think a lot of the times, I can't speak for everybody else, but I can speak for me. I'll say, I'm not trying to be perfect for myself. I'm either trying to be perfect for, my friends in the past, my family in the past, somebody who put that on me, who told me that I needed to be this thing, a coach, a coach in the past that beat me down. And so a lot of the times it's like, we're not fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for all these people that did us wrong in the past,
Right. Or that we don't want to let down.
Or that we don't want to let down.
That's
exactly.
Another one. That's
actually, that's actually more accurate. It's more so that we're fighting for the people that we don't want to let down, more so than the people that did us wrong.
Yeah, but sometimes the people that did us wrong, it's like it's a chip on the sholler, so it's an extra weight we carry. So no matter what, it's like we're putting a lot of weight on ourselves.
It's no matter what, exactly. It's like we're going to that cage with.
It could be so suffocating.
Oh, it is. It's terrible. It's terrible, and I've experienced it. We've all experienced it.
Yeah.
To a level that I never, ever, ever, ever want my future kids to ever experience. Like I want my kids to be great at jiu-jitsu, great at kickboxing, but I also want them to go to college and experience, a life of their own. I never want them to go through all that mental battle, because I don't know if they'll ever if they're able to come out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, I don't know. I knew, like I said, me, you, we're out. We were able to go in it and come out a different person. It actually made us better in a lot of ways. But I'm like, man, the way that our society is going, I don't know if my future kids are going to be able to come out of that.
Oh my gosh. It's one of those things that I think about with my kids all the time too. I'm like, how do I best navigate this? And how do I kind of break the cycles that we just assumed were normal,
You're doing it right, though. You're doing it right. I see you with your kids. You're doing it right.
I try, you know, I try to give them space and time and allow them to have their emotions. And I think a big thing is not discrediting children for the way that they think or feel just because they're small people. Right?
Yeah.
I think not dismissing them, not just thinking like,
That's
well,
a
because
big one.
dismissing. It's like we should still validate, you know, they're and we have plenty of science and data now on the way that children's brains develop. Which, you know, I don't think that our parents probably were able to, you know, have that information, much less, you know, there's still a lot of parents that don't seek it out. But I find it fascinating, you know, that children basically don't have a frontal lobe until they're about 7. And the frontal lobe helps you regulate your emotions. And I look at myself now and I'm like, I still have trouble at times regulating my emotions. And I have a fully mature, developed brain. And sometimes I just want to fly off the handle. Like I want to lose my shit, you know?
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, you know, like how can I blame these children for like their emotional combatants, but when they don't even have access to that part of their brain, and I can't even do it with a fully developed brain at times, you know, it's like I have had to work so hard on regulating my emotions because now learning as a parent, it's very important that I am regulated so they can co-regulate off of me, so that they can learn off of me. Like if I lose my shit, you know, that doesn't help them to learn, or like be an example, or like learn to get through their emotions, and not taking things personal either. That's a big one for me, and that goes beyond parenting. It's just like, you know, if someone's having a bad day, and they may I don't know, say something, or they may, you know, whatever it is, they cut you off in traffic, the person you don't even know, whatever, they go hard on you and, you know, inspiring you, like, what? It's like, you can't take it personal because they're just having their own, like their own issues and things they're dealing with.
Yes, and that you brought up a good point. That was something that I realized when you talk about sometimes, let's just say someone cuts you off in traffic, right?
Yeah.
That actually happened to me today. Actually, it was like you know, she wasn't paying attention. She was on her phone, and she it was in my neighborhood, so she was going slow. So she hit me. It wouldn't have been bad.
In the car, or were you on your bike?
I was on my bike.
You were on your bike.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Still, that's scary though.
Yeah. But
you're crazy riding a motorcycle
yeah,
around here.
I was able to kind of like, you know, swerve around because she was like pulling out, and I was coming straight, and she was just on her phone, kind of looking. Yeah. You know, and she was just coming right out, and I was just like, "Are you?" I'm like, I'm pretty sure you see me because it's an obvious street. Like, you're gonna pull out, and no one else is on the road but me. You know, it's in my neighborhood. It's like a little neighborhood road. Yeah. And I just swerve around her, and I just like, I could have like honked my horn, whatever, but I just kind of gave her like a, you know, I looked back, because I can see on her face she was like, you know what I'm saying? So I just kind of looked back, like I gave her one of these, like, you know, like, don't worry about it, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? But in the past, I would have freaked out. When I was younger, I would have freaked out. But you know why?
It would have felt like a personal attack.
It would have felt like a personal attack on me. But realistically, when those moments happen, it's not that she cut me off so that I'm mad at her because she cut me off. Like you just said, it's a personal attack. She cut me off, so my dad. She cut me off, so my coach. Yes. She cut me off, so all the letdowns in life. Yes. You know what I'm saying? She cut me off, so everything is. So now she's getting all of it, and we don't realize the reason why a lot of things bother. We just snap like that, but it has less to do with the moments and more to do with like all the past stuff that we haven't unpacked. Yeah. And so today I was like, oh, I guess I've grown a little bit, you know, because I remember driving my car being like, you know what I'm saying, like pull over.
Right. I'm about to get out and settle this, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your past. You know, like growing up in Jamaica. What was that like? What was your parenting? I mean, we've talked a little bit about this, but I wanted you to share it with listeners.
So, growing up in Jamaica makes you appreciate all the values of life here in America because, you know, Jamaica is a third world country. When you see Jamaica on TV, you see the beaches, you know, the sand, the singing, the playing the guitar, you know, people in dreadlocks.
I've been to Jamaica one time, but I don't feel like it was a fair assessment because it was like on a cruise thing. And so they only keep you in like one line. I've told you about this. And we hiked like the Duns River Falls and whatever, you know. But we had a cool driver. He kind of took us because I don't like sticking only in the touristy stuff. Like whenever I can, I want to get out and see like what it's really like. So he kind of took us a little bit further, and we had some like real Jamaican jerk, like cooked it on like it's like, what is it, like bamboo or like I don't know what it is. Yeah, like bamboo. It was so good.
It's really good. It's really good. So, when I was there, I spent most of my time outside. I was always outside because it was just kind of like, as a kid, it's like seen and not heard. Our culture is we were colonized by the British, so we're only about 70 years independent. So what I mean by that is we don't have a lot of like structure that has been developed like 200 years ago, which you know what I'm saying. So still kind of getting our base underneath us. But growing up in Jamaica was interesting because this so much food that you can access outside of the house, like fruits and vegetables. You can just walk around. I don't know if it's still like this, but as a kid, I would just get lost into the woods. And
when was the last time you were there?
9. I was 9 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
are you ever gonna go back?
Possibly. Yeah. I don't have a lot of family there.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that I knew, like my grandma, and my mom's father, my mom's mom and father both passed away, ways back.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I knew passed away already. So it's kind of like, I don't really have much ties there. The only family that I really have here, my dad lives in Queens, my mom lives in Florida, her stepdad lives with her in Florida. But anyways, going back to Jamaica. Now, when I was
fruit.
Yeah, that was the best part about growing up in Jamaica. Just being able to walk, and pick a mango or some plums, you know what I mean? Or just like sugar cane, oh man, it was the greatest thing ever. But also resources are limited there, whereas we didn't have a TV, we didn't have, you know what I'm saying? I think we might have had a radio, but that's about it. It wasn't like you can just go and drive to the store, because not everyone had cars, you know what I'm saying? It was one of those things where it's a third world country.
Yeah.
So whenever I explain to people, they don't really understand. But when I was a kid, I showered. We had like an outhouse shower that I showered with, and it was a shower that was room temperature water, which for me, I didn't experience hot water until I came to the States. And I tell this story quite a few times. First time I came to the States was 2001. Right before 9/11, I came to Brooklyn, New York. And I remember walking into the bathroom after getting off the airplane, going into the bathroom, and taking a shower, because my mom was like, "Oh, you just got off the plane, you gotta take a shower." And I remember seeing this bathtub, and I took my clothes off, and I get in it, and I was just like, "Wow, like this is crazy." Like I remember thinking like, "Oh my gosh, water is warm." You know what I mean? I'm like I'm asking my mom, like, "Is it warm always coming out the pipe?" And she's like, "Yep, it's always warm." So my mom moved here about a year me. A year before me. I'm sorry. She moved here a year before me to Brooklyn, New York. And
before you were born?
No, before I came to the States.
Before you did. Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, life in Jamaica, it's a little bit, it's harder to get ahead. You have to graduate like top 2 in your class, because the foundation, there's not a lot of, the foundation is just not there yet. It will be over time.
Yeah.
But Jamaica is still a new country, you know what I'm saying? Independently, I mean.
Yeah.
It's a new country independently, because 70 years, that's one people ago.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, so my mom moved here to build a better life for me, because she wanted better for me, you know what I mean? She wanted more for me, and while she was here, growing up without her for that year was hard. It was really hard being separated from her, because she was like the only person that really showed me love. My grandma didn't show it, my aunt didn't show it, everyone I was around didn't show it. It was kind of like, "Why are you here? Go play." You know what I mean? Every day, go play every single day. And so I didn't get that love or that affection that I desperately wanted. And I remember, like, I talk about this again. I remember walking along the beach, looking up at the airplanes flying over Jamaica, because you'd always see, because Jamaica's only an hour away from Florida, plane ride. So you'd always see the airplanes going over. I would always hear them, I'd see them, and I would think like, yeah, someday I'm gonna get on one of those planes, and someday I'm gonna go to America, and I'm gonna do something great, and I'm gonna be really great, and people are gonna love me because I'm great. Not entirely those thoughts. But that was the feeling, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The feeling of like
and the desire.
The desire, yeah. It was like burning within me. Like I'm gonna prove to all you guys that I'm deserved to be loved, that I deserved to be somebody, I deserve to be recognized, you know, and y'all are gonna know Ode Osbourne someday, you know, and so it's a good and bad thing because it's good because it drives you to be the best. But it's also, but it's bad because you know, when you get too hard on yourself. You know what I'm saying? You get so hard. So when I came to the States and I got into the bathtub for the first time, I realized two things. One, I will never ever take anything for granted ever again. And two, that this was one of the greatest countries in the world. And I've said that before. You know, I think I'm blessed to be able to experience Jamaica and then coming to America because otherwise, I don't think I would have had this much appreciation for this country, you know, because I know where I came from. I came from humble beginnings, you know. There's things that happened to me as a child that I have never talked about. But I came from humble beginnings, and I appreciate this country so much because it's given me clarity, you know what I'm saying? It's humbled me in a lot of ways. Because when you come from like nothing, you appreciate everything. When you come from something, you appreciate nothing.
Yeah.
There's people that because I have a lot of friends who grew up wealthy, and they're super appreciative. You know, so it also depends on how you are raised as well.
Yeah, but I think that helps just have it kind of innately because you just never had that experience, and then you get that experience, and it's like, oh, you appreciate it. But then there's also people sometimes that, you know, they come from those humble beginnings and they let that desire consume them to the point where it's all projection. It's all like the most important thing to them, still that wounded child, right? Is like, how can I make people love me, respect me? You know, how can I want to be liked? How can I want to be loved? And so it's like, okay, well, I need to drive a fast sports car, and I need to have a nice house, and I got to have a trophy wife.
Yeah,
not just a regular wife. It's got to be like a trophy wife.
Has to be.
Right,
Because how are you supposed to brag to your friends?
Right, exactly. Like someone that, you know, other people would like be like, wow, he's so lucky. He's got such a hot wife, you know. And then I've got to have the kids, and I've got to have this, and I've got a high paying job, and I've got to have the money in the bank, and I got to be able to do, you know, this. I have, you know, brand new shoe closet full, you know, like whatever.
Wow, that's like so accurate. It's
and really, if you strip that all away, and once you start to look at life with more of that empathy, and you start to realize like the wounds that we carry as children into our adult life, and the work that has to take place in order to undo a lot of that, and then when it really kind of comes full circle. There's a famous quote that Jim Carrey said that's it says something along the lines like, everyone should get rich and famous so that they can figure out that that's not what it's about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And not only that, but everyone should get rich and famous so they can realize that you have more problems. You know what I mean? I had less problems when I was Ode Osbourne. I have more problems now that I'm Ode Osbourne, the UFC fighter.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure you can
Jamaican
attest to
Sensation.
that. Yeah, and I'm sure you can attest to that.
Yes.
I'm sure you can attest to that, you know.
And I think one of the biggest eye-opening moments for me was thinking that, you know, becoming the UFC world champion, or, you know, becoming this, you know, great notable fighter, that it would fix everything. I got fixated on that. Like once I got to the UFC and I was like, you know, I have all these problems because I haven't achieved this yet. And I kind of I blamed the fact that I hadn't achieved this yet. I was like, and if I could just do that, all the problems would go away. I don't know if I thought it consciously, but it was that feeling again in my head. Like if I could just be that great, and if I could just achieve that amount of money, and if I could just do that, then every life will be great and perfect, and I know it'll all
now.
The stuff will go. Yeah, like I'll be seen, I'll be valued, I'll be.
No, I'm saying I feel seen right now.
Oh yeah,
I feel like you're literally saying everything that I've thought at one point in my life. I'm like, oh man, I feel seen. I've literally thought those exact same things. Like, it's wild how accurate that is.
And then the blessing in getting there and having the curtain pulled back and realizing it fixes nothing. It fixes nothing. And if anything, life just gets more complicated because now you've got all these, glommers on you that want to,
Yep.
ride the train for, whatever other reasons.
Yep.
So your circle of friends can, get bigger, but it also gets smaller. And then you also find out that if it doesn't fix anything, then what does?
Yeah.
Like what do I do? Like
Yeah.
I'm still depressed.
Yep.
I'm still unhappy. I'm still struggling. I'm still have all the problems emotionally and mentally that I had coming into this. And now the rude awakening is that what I thought would fix it didn't. It actually made it more complicated and worse. So where do I go from here? And that's when I think I started to have to sit with myself alone and quietly and take that time and space, whether it's 5 minutes in the shower or it's, 10 minutes in sauna or it's, it's yoga. And it's like allowing the questions to be asked. Right? It's we obviously want answers, but if we don't even have questions, how are we ever going to get answers?
100%, 100%. And, everyone have their own way of meditating. Like, I pray a lot. I'm always like, I pray to God. I'm like, please, like, give me peace. You know what I'm saying? Like, I used to pray for, like, money and cars and, trophy wives and all, you know what I mean? For real. Like, I was like, oh, man, I want to.
Which I think you got that one nailed, by the way. She's not just a trophy wife, by the way. But your girlfriend, oh my gosh.
I got lucky.
She's so not only beautiful on the exterior, but she is just like such a sweet person.
She is.
Son, you better be careful because you already know. He's all about it. He's like in love with her.
Yeah.
He'll definitely steal her if he can.
And she's always talking about like when, she's always like, have Misha, when can we meet Misha's kids again? And I'm like, oh, I'll talk to her. But, they're busy. They're doing wrestling. They do this. But yeah, I got blessed and so blessed with Tasha because looks aside, like she's one of those people that's like so hard on herself, like, oh, I'm like, oh, I'm this, I'm ugly, you know what I mean? She told me for the longest time she thought she was ugly and she was so hard on herself, and I was just like, what? But that's in my mind, that's what makes her perfect to me, because she feels that she has all these flaws. And I'm like, you don't have all these flaws. You're amazing. Stop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. But she's so humble, She is. She's so humble, like so humble. And she's not afraid to tell me, hey, you know what I mean? Like, hey.
Yeah.
Like, and that was intimidating for me, finding someone that was like so forward, because I wasn't used to that. I was used to like, sugarcoating everything. You know what I mean? Sugarcoating everything. Like, it's gotten to the point now where, like, I'm not gonna lie, when we'll like pig out on some food. We'll pig out on some food, and I'll be like, hey man, you look at you pigging out on that food, Whereas like before, I could have never said that to anybody. I could have never said that to any woman. Like, I see you pigging out on that food.
Yeah.
But like we tease each other, and it's great. But yeah.
You guys have a playful relationship. I like it.
Yeah,
playful.
It's so playful.
She's the best.
Oh,
I know.
she's amazing. She's incredible. I'm not gonna lie.
I was thinking about like her like reflecting on herself, and that's so easy as a woman to do, to like nitpick yourself, and especially in a world where, I mean, there's like AI women who are not even real anymore, who are literally like perfect, and you're like, oh my gosh, I would love to, look like that or whatever. Like, how do they do it? And there's these, moms that make it seem like it's just like it's so perfect and like big sourdough all day long.
She struggles
with
that. Like, looking at people on Insta, she struggles with that because she doesn't, you know what I mean? She has sensitive skin, so she doesn't wear any makeup or anything like that. She's never worn makeup a day in her life. She, like I said, her skin is super sensitive.
Yeah.
But like, she sees, all these like pretty women all the time, and she's always, and she's always like, man, like, especially like, BBLs are a big thing now, and you know what I mean? And she's like, do I need
what's a BBL? I don't even know.
Like a Brazilian butt lift.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the butt implants.
Oh, she definitely does not need
that.
No,
she don't.
She's got it going on.
Yeah, she don't need none of that. But, she's talked about how social media has made her feel, what's the word?
Less than or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And it's crazy to me because I'm like, what? Yeah. Really? You? You know what I mean? And I'm like, really? But
but it's everyone, and that's what's great is it's relatable. Because I mean, you look at Tasha and you're like, she's so beautiful. Like, I just think she's gorgeous.
She is.
But like, and her heart too. I just love the way that she's with the kids. But anyways, you know, every woman is going to struggle with this.
Yeah.
Every single woman.
That's what I'm seeing, you know.
Yeah. Everybody.
And I see that now, and something I notice is I wonder what life is going to be like. Because, you know, the content creator females, that just everything is, you know what I'm saying? Everything is like keeping up with the Jones.
Yeah.
I wonder what life is going to be like when they get old. And even males as well.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because eventually there's gonna come a time where
you basically you become expendable. You feel like that, anyways, where you know you're just kind of dismissed because there's newer, hotter women that are coming out that are getting the attention. And this is the issue that I take with, you know, really throwing yourself into OnlyFans or even, you know, adult movies or these things, is that I just want to know that these women do have value beyond, because I'm not saying that you can't do that stuff, but, you know, but just like me with fighting, I didn't have value beyond that, and that can be really detrimental, especially as you age out of, you age out of sport, you age out of sex appeal, you age out of
everything.
this. And as a woman, that's a shorter, you know, period of time. I feel like,
except for you guys, I think you guys gain sex appeal. We age out of it. Like
I don't
40.
know. I feel like
no. I heard this from. I have tons of women friends, and they're like 40s and 50s, and they're like, yeah, as soon as you turn 40, you turn into like a psychopath with sex.
Oh yes, I mean, as far as like sex drive goes, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
But I think men get to stay quote unquote like attractive like for longer. Like I think 40 and 50-year-old men can still be like very attractive. Where it gets harder for women because like even like what do you call it, like biologically, men I think are kind of hardwired in a way for like survival to procreate with like young fertile females.
Yep.
And obviously we have conscious minds, so we can, you can love a woman beyond that, and you can stay with her for life. But as far as like just purely physical attraction, when we're talking about like, am I still sexy and do I have sex appeal? I think men get to stay in that stage of life longer. Like there will be 20-year-old women who would still like go for like a 40-year-old.
Yeah,
and it's like not quite equal in that sense. But it is a really difficult thing to transition through. And I would say like as I, I'm getting to that latter part of my career, I'm so much less focused on marketing myself with sex appeal because I'm like, look, that's not where I want to go. And it's not it's not what I want to be. And so, my numbers of, social media and stuff like that, it's like, look, I might lose some followers because I'm not willing to focus on that.
So yeah, which is fine. You might lose some followers in that area, but you're also gonna gain followers in this area, like this space, built for growth. You know what I mean? You're gonna gain a lot more, and your followers are gonna be so authentic to you. You know what I mean? They're gonna be authentic.
That's what I want.
Exactly.
I'd rather have half the followers and have them really be engaged and love what I'm transitioning to and what I'm talking about and what I'm growing through, because being moving into like a middle-aged woman is like, how do I find my footing and still find my value, and without selling myself, in a way that doesn't like feed my purpose and my soul. It's like, do I want to be sexy and attractive? Like, yeah, of course. Like, like
I think we all do. It's a natural thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's just different. Like, I don't want to feel pressured to like market myself that way. I just want to be beautiful in who I am. Like, beautiful as a mother, beautiful because I'm active and physical, and I take care of my body, and but I'm not trying to like make it my main focus, because I've found that when I have done more of that in the past, it's like you get more upfront, but then it's so shallow.
It's so shallow. Oh, it's so it's the craziest thing ever, because like I contribute that to we talked about winning and losing, right?
Yeah.
When I win a fight, it's like the greatest moment ever, I'm like, yeah, ego is big, but what did that do for me personally? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It didn't do anything for me personally. Now, if we go into a school and we talk to some kids, and a couple of those kids message you like, hey, like, I really appreciated how much you changed my life. Now that did something way better way better.
Amen.
And that's why I love working with kids, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, you used to be a teacher.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I have, so I just, I'm going to send it to you. I just released a new program based on building self-efficacy within the youth. So focusing on like accountability. Why is it that we need to be accountable? Why do we need to hold ourselves accountable? You know, it's the why of things. There's 6 core values. Respect. Why, you know, how can we use respect to build like a friendly environment? For example, one of the things I pointed out, right? If you and I are working together and you did something wrong, instead of me like coming down on you hard, I'll just be like, you know what? Let's fix it together. Let's work on this together. Yeah. And what that does is that builds that respect with each other, but it also makes our project, it gives it a higher chance of us to succeed in that project. So I talked about, you know, it's stuff like that, how these core values are going to be beneficial in life and conducive to your success. And it's K through 12th grade, and it's free. I put it out. I spent a lot of actually time and money on it, and I was originally gonna like see if I can sell it to CBS because I did it in front of like a green screen. You know, there's like things that pop into the screen to make it more engaging, because when you're talking about kids, they lose their engagement in seconds.
Right.
So I try to make it super engaging by having things when I say like, okay, picture this. That thing that I'm talking about comes into the screen.
Smart.
And then you know what I mean. They can see it, visualize it, because again, they lose their attention span super quickly. But I was like, I wanted to sell it to TBS because I put a lot of money into it. But then I had this thought. I was like, you know what? Call it an epiphany, if you may. I was like, you know what? God's blessed me with so much. What am I blessing society with? I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give it away for free. And so I uploaded it to YouTube 2 days ago.
Wow.
Maybe 4 days ago. So I uploaded all 4 of them to YouTube, and I was just like, here you go.
That's amazing. I'm really proud of you, because I know that that's something that you've been wanting to work on for a while. But you've been working on it for a while.
It's probably like the last 8 years, actually.
And you've done a lot of volunteer work too with kids, and you know.
That's my passion. I'm actually more passionate about working with kids than I am about fighting, because it's just, you know, when I look at all the kids, I see myself in every kid. It's a weird dynamic, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a big ass kid. That's really it. No, for real. That's what, like, even if you stick me and Tasha in a room with like a bunch of people and like a couple kids, you'll see us like playing with the kids.
Right.
You know?
Yes. No, I've witnessed it. My kids love you guys. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I'm glad that you've done it. What is it called?
It's called The Wolf. So I named it The Wolf because I strongly believe in being in a pack. You know, we need each other to grow. It's hard to do things by ourselves. And as wolves, there's like, you know, the beta wolf, which is like the first, you know what I mean, the learning and observing wolf. So betas just learn and observe. You know what I'm saying? You just observe, learn. And when you're an alpha, you have all these responsibilities. People think being an alpha is just like being like this like masculine, like telling you what to do. It's like, nah, being alpha means if all my other wolves mess up, I got to take the responsibility. I got to take the blame. Being alpha means, you know, there may be days where I'm killing an animal and I'm going hungry so my wolves can eat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's those nuances that people don't, you know, they don't see. So that's why I called it the wolf pack. Because again,
and being a leader.
Yes,
right.
We want to be a leader.
Like, don't just follow just because everyone else is doing this. Like, have the strength and conviction and respect for yourself to be like, hey, I'm not gonna do that. And then you might be surprised with the wolves that are acting a little bit more like sheep might actually start to follow you, and you might change the trajectory of like what their life was going down. And that's extremely rewarding.
And that's funny that you mentioned that, because leadership is one of the 6 principles. You know, that's its own segment. Each of them, you know, probably like 5-minute segments. Leadership is one of them. So thank you for bringing that up. Because when I was a kid, I actually was a big follower, you know, because I wanted to be accepted so much.
Yeah.
So
You're
bad.
Searching for that love. Yeah, that love and acceptance.
Yeah, so much. Like, I just followed oh, what are we doing? We're going to, oh, okay, I'm there. You know, I was such a follower growing up.
Well, this is how gangs get so, popular, and they recruit kids on purpose because, they know that
they're vulnerable.
Kids are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Kids want to be loved. They want to belong.
Yep.
It's essential to our survival.
Yeah, it's a human nature to want to be a part of other humans.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like proven.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do to somebody is stick someone in solitary confinement. You know, that's like
the worst form of torture.
Worst form of torture. Yeah.
Do you have any stories of some kids that you've worked with that you feel like you've made a big impact?
Oh yes, I have. This one of my students. He's now in high school. I think he's in his senior year. He's doing like robotics. He's like super bright, so gifted, so smart. His name is Robert Cotton. Just such a smart kid. And he struggled in school, not educationally, but like behavioral wise, because he was just, he was just bored. Like he was bored out of his mind. And he asked a lot of questions. If the teacher said, well, this is why that happened, he'd be like, what? Really? How? Explain to me more. And so teachers would get frustrated because he would always like ask questions.
Want more information.
He want more information, and he kind of like, argue that, argue his statements. Like, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? And so I would
This is why I don't like the public school model very much, because even great teachers that want to help kids excel, like when you were handcuffed a little bit. I'm sure you've experienced this. Like as a teacher, there's only so much that you are allowed to even do, or the types of it's gotten only worse. Like the types of conversations. You don't have time when you have 30 kids in a class to like always sit down, like get through your lesson plan and make sure all the other kids get it. But when you have this curious mind, then it gets kind of snuffed out. But it's like this critical thinking, beautiful brain that sounds like this child or young man has.
His brain was incredible. It was just like the way that he would interpret things, you know what I mean? He'd be like, Mr. O, I know you said this, but here's how I feel about it. I'd be like, huh. Okay, Robert, tell me more. Tell me more. How, you know what I mean? And that's how I was like, huh. He would really, explain how he felt deeply about certain things, and there was this one teacher, I'll never forget it. This one teacher, they used to get into it so much. And then I told him, one day he was just like, he wrote out his feelings on a piece of paper. Like, he wrote out his, like, front and back and gave it to her. It was end of the school year. He's like, oh, I'm not going to see her anymore. Here you go. But the fact that he's able to do that, write out your feelings on a piece of paper, it shows your maturity, because at that age, kids aren't really that in tune to their feelings. You know what I mean? They're really not. But he was just one of those kids that I would literally pick him up in the summertime, and take him to the park and teach him how to rollerblade or longboard or take him fishing. I spent a lot of time with him.
Was his parents' situation, like at home situation, rough?
Yeah, a little bit. His parents were divorced. He'd spend some time with his mom, some time with his dad, some time with his grandma. And, when he was at his grandma's house, sometimes I'd pick him up. Sometimes when he was at his mom's house, I'd pick him up. Dad's house, I'd pick him up, and just spent a lot of time with him. And, that was one of the other things too. It was a charter school, and obviously the schools had a problem with me. I think I did things unconventionally.
They don't like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
They don't like it.
But if I see a good in it, I'm going to do it, and so I dedicated time and, picked him up, and we did a little, we would do, because he was interested in like forging, where you heat up metal and make different objects in it, and so I would take him to
like welding?
Welding, yes. Okay. Welding. But welding is like when you put two things together.
Right.
Forging is like when
you shape it.
Yeah, you shape it. And so I would take him to do stuff like that, because he was so fascinated in things like that. And so whatever he was fascinated in, I would take him to do, and then I'd get him ice cream after him. But then I taught him different things. I would say, hey, the reason why we're doing this is because I want you to learn, and I want you to be the best you can be. And so I would, each time I'd pick him up and have him do things, I'd make it a lesson. I'd make it like a teaching lesson for him, and it was great because, he was a black kid, And I feel like there's not a lot of, especially where I'm from in Milwaukee, right? There's not a lot of like, role model black dads that there is a lot, but we're definitely lacking. We could use a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? So I always
Milwaukee.
Wisconsin.
Yeah,
okay,
it's like I thought so. So I remember. I don't know why I always think of Florida, but I was like, no, I know it's not Florida because you said it one time.
Well, I grew up in Florida, but then I went to college. In Wisconsin. Yeah, and so it was an inner city school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was always important for me to have kids who look like me demonstrate like, hey, this is how, you know what I mean? Like I would tuck my shirt. We didn't have a dress code.
Yeah.
I tucked my shirt in every single day. I wore a collared shirt. I wore slacks with dress shoes.
Right.
Because I wanted the kids to see a black man looking different than what, you know what I'm saying, than what they see on TV or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wanted to give them like a different example, than what they generally know or see. And so it was amazing because I knew every single kid, like a bowl of rice. I knew every grain in and out, I knew everything about every single kid. And I loved it because I not only had a relationship with them, but I had a relationship with their parents too. Because, if they would get into fights, I'd literally pull them to the side and I'd be like, okay, so we got into a fight. Do you want to go to the principal's office or do you want to, let's talk about it and let's figure out where we went wrong so it doesn't happen again the next time. Because a lot of times we're so quick to just send kids home to the principal's office, then they come back to school and they learn nothing. They still have the same tension.
Yeah.
And so I would tell their parents hey, between you and me, your son got into a fight. I didn't send it to the principal's office, but we talked about it. Everything's good. But if you feel like there's more that needs to be done, let me know. And they were always so grateful, because they would look at someone like Robert. He was always the bad kid, They would look at him as the bad kid. But I saw this amazing kid who was gonna run the world someday, for real. He's so smart. And that's how I look at kids. I look at all the things that they're good at, not what they're bad at. Let's try to take their strengths and make it and turn them into leaders with it.
Right.
Something I would do is the kids who are the most disruptive, I would give them tasks, and they loved it. They loved tasks. For some reason, they loved. You know why they love tasks is because in other classes, they were told to shut up, stop talking, get out of the class.
Yeah.
You're not, But in my class, they were like, hey, come here, hand these out. Hey, come here, you want to go and take this to the principal's office for me? I'm trusting you with this. You know what I'm saying? So they gave them some sort of purpose.
And some camaraderie.
Right?
They're kind of on the same team. It's you're helping them to, to feel purposeful.
Yeah.
And everybody wants that at the end of the day.
It broke my heart when I had to leave. When I got signed to the UFC and I won my first fight. Sorry, lost my first fight, won my second fight, lost my third fight, and I had one more fight in my contract. And that was when I met you, and I was like, oh man, I quit my job because I was, the airplane oxygen mask theory when you're putting the oxygen onto yourself and not anybody else. And man, it really broke my heart. Me and the kids were bawling because it was just, they've seen me get to the UFC. You know what I mean? And so it was one of those things where they were part of my life and I was a part of their life. And I needed them as much as they needed me. And it was beautiful.
That's so powerful. I love that. I love what you're doing. I want to be more part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it. How we can do it.
Did you
go with the Boys and Girls Club?
So I work with Las Vegas Metropolitan Police.
Yep.
So they have their own program called LEAP that they implement in schools. So when I first moved out here, I reached out to Grant Okinawa and I was like, hey, so I have my own program that I use and it's tried and tested and proven. It works amazing. Do you mind if I use it when we go, can I use this program and go into schools and show you? And if you don't like it, fine. But if you do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, let's do it. So him and Elliot and myself would, we'd go into these schools and they'd let me implement my program. And they were like, yo, we're using your program from now on.
That's so good.
So yeah, it's kind of like the Wolf program, just the 6 core values I focused on. Why? And it was like a 6-week thing. Each week we would go over 1 core value.
That's perfect. I love it. Well, let me know if there's a way that I can get involved with
Definitely.
this. And, I think in closing here, there was one thing that I felt like was really important that I wanted to highlight. And it was you saying, I wanted them to see someone that looked like them, in a new light, in a different way, something that could inspire them from something different. And I think there's so much value in what you say with that because, my understanding is like it can feel like you are only destined to be as great as you see the others like you.
Agreed.
Around you, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like my heart breaks for these children that are, in poor neighborhoods or, they just they think that is, well, no one around me.
Yep.
I can't see
Anything.
Anybody doing the great things that all these other people will, and so that means that I'm this, and that's what I've got to stay and be because I can't see beyond that. And I think being that shining light is so important. And I'm gonna say something. I did not have a problem with the Black Mermaid movie. You remember the mermaid, Little Mermaid? When they made her, she was black.
I don't know if I watched it.
Yeah, she was. It was a huge controversial thing.
Oh yeah, I did watch it.
Disney. It was like they made and they used.
I don't know if I finished it though. I think I watched.
Well, it's a Disney movie.
Yeah,
maybe
me and Tasha. Me and Tasha watched Disney movies like.
Oh really?
Oh
okay.
yeah, we love Disney
movies.
movies.
you watch this one then. I supported this because look. Get off the high horse. She's a fictional character.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. She had bright red, no real hair. Like it's like you guys. The message here though is that these little girls who are black or are of color in any way are gonna see like that they can be a princess too.
Yep.
And I remember when I was on Celebrity Big Brother 3. And my friend Todrick, who I love absolutely to death, just walked such a different life than me. And we got like 6 weeks of just like sitting in the house uninterrupted, basically doing what you and I are doing right here. And he blew my mind sometimes with the things that I didn't think about. And I never thought about like as a young child, like walking into a Walmart and not seeing like black Barbies or black baby dolls or things like that. Like now it's better. It's certainly better. But like, or like watching Disney movies as a young, like black girl, and like there were no black or ethnic princesses for a long time, and even the ones that are like still to this day, Princess and the Frog. She's a frog like 90% of the movie. Right?
Yeah,
it's just it's like wait, okay,
it's
like I'm seeing this from a totally different perspective, and I just like took it for granted.
Yeah.
And that's actually when I started to not take the terms white privilege offensively. Because before that I was like, well, are you saying that I didn't work for anything? Like I worked hard, like I work really hard. But it's not about that. It's not personal.
No.
It is something that's just like we just don't realize is different because we don't walk another life. Like I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful to have those role models. So I commend you for that. And I know
thank you. I appreciate that because I remember the feeling of I was so when I grew up in Jamaica, we didn't go to school like that. My grandma, my aunt didn't send me to school all the time because there's when you're lacking in different things like food and money, you know what I mean? It's like school is like the last. So I was really bad in school when I came to America. I was like lost in the sauce, and so I remember sitting in history class and my history teacher, talking about like Benjamin Franklin creating the bifocal and Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb.
Did you even speak English when you came here?
Yeah, it's a broken English. Yeah. And I remember like looking around at my peers. That like they showed a whole movie about like the Civil War and all kinds of different stuff and war. The wars and the history and you know what I mean. I remember thinking like, man, I can't really relate to any of these people. But what I can relate to is, O.J. Simpson back in the day playing football and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and 50 Cent and Nelly and Ja Rule and Busta Rhymes. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like I can relate to those people because those are the people that I'm shown, right? But my thing when I got older, I was like, why wasn't I taught that I could become a doctor or a lawyer or a physician? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was just one of those things where I was like, the only people that I could have become was a athlete or a rapper, and I became an athlete, and that was only because that was what was laid in front of me. You know what I mean? Oh, this is what you can only become.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
So, well, you've done.
And I can't rap, so that wouldn't have worked out.
Well, you make a great athlete. This much I can say. So, oh man, Ode, it was great to sit down and chat with you as always. I feel like the listeners get a personal insight of what a sauna session is for you and I. Just sit down, pick each other's brains, learn, grow. It was wonderful. I commend you again for the great things that you do outside of the octagon, and you sure is hell fun to watch in the octagon.
Thank
so
you.
Everybody, follow him. How do we follow you?
So I make it short and simple on everything. Ode Osbourne on everything.
Okay, easy.
Yeah.
And be on the lookout for the next fight. I mean, your last one was epic. That knockout was just like, oh my gosh, I was like ecstatic. So it was great. And
did you see that moment where I like stood up, like, oh man, when I hit him and he fell and I like stood over him for a second, and I was just like, oh, do I have to?
Right. That would be exactly how I think too. It's like I don't really want to hurt him more. I just want to, I just want to do what I came here to do, and then I want to send them home healthy to their, to their family and to their loved ones.
I messaged him after. I was like, hey man, I hope you're good.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's beautiful. You're great. You're amazing, Ode.
You too, Misha. Thank you for having me on.